Okay, I'm just sharing my screen. Have a look at it. Hope you're able to see my screen. Yes, okay. This is for see the same page up the same way. Yesterday I covered this only, right? Okay. Right. So we know what is that security policy is all about, right? So why do we need a policy? Basically, by default, no traffic is going to be allowed to pass through on any of the firewalls, right? So if you wanted to permit the traffic, so you have to have a policy, right? So we call this as a system default security policy, which means no traffic is going to be permitted to pass through on any of the security devices. So an explicit permit is required on the firewall boxes. But on the branch offices devices alone, like the low end models like 100H, 100B, on all those boxes, by default, okay, where is my mouse cursor? I don't have my cursor. Here it is. Okay. See, on the branch office boxes, you have the trust zone and trust zone predefined, right? So any traffic initiated from a zone destined to the same zone, like trust to trust, is allowed. Okay, this is the default policy on the branch office devices. We already know that these zones are not available by default on the high-end boxes. Only on the branch office boxes these zones will be available, trust and untrust zone. Okay, same way, if the traffic, the source of the traffic is trust and destination of the traffic is untrust, then that traffic will also be permitted. So any traffic initiated from the trust zone destined to the trust zone, permitted by default. Any traffic initiated from a zone called as trust and destined to a zone called as untrust, that is also permitted by default. Okay, so now untrust to trust is not allowed by default. Okay, so this is the default security policy on branch office devices. Yeah, trust to untrust is trust to trust is also allowed. Trust to untrust is also allowed. Okay. Right. So at the same time, we have also seen from the video what I have shared, you would understood that what is the policy? Policy is also known as what? A rule base, correct? So we call this as collection of set of rules. Now every rule is meant for identifying some traffic, and once the traffic has been identified, what has to be done on that is also going to be decided as an action on the same rule. So you have identification and also an action. Okay. The recommendation is what? On your security policies, you can have the statements only with the permit statement. That is not going to be a problem at all. What I mean to say, you can have the set of rules. All of the rules can have only the action as permit. If I'm going to be having all the rules only with the action set as deny, that is going to be creating some problem. Why? As we know that we have the set of rules, right? On a specific direction, the traffic is going to be processed by this set of rules. How the rules are going to be processed? The first rule will be used for matching against the received traffic. The first rule itself is matching, then whatever the action is associated to that rule, that will be executed on the traffic, and no further processing of matching traffic against the set of rules is going to be happening. Do you understand what I'm saying? Until a first match found, this matching will be happening. Yeah. Mm. 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 No, you complete your question so that I'll be able to clarify that. Okay, you have 20 rules. You have 20 rules. The first rule itself is matching. The rest of the 19 rules are matching different traffic, correct? Okay. Why should it has been executed? See, if the received packet is matching against the first rule itself, then whatever the action is associated, immediately it will be applied. Rest of the rules are not going to be matched at all for that packet. Assume that another packet is coming in and the first rule is not matching, then automatically I will try to match against the second rule. If a match found, immediately the action whatever is associated will be executed. Okay. If no rules are matched against the received packet, then automatically the default deny rule will come into picture. That means the traffic is going to be dropped. So if I have the policies only with the deny statement, what will happen? If the packet is matching the rule, the traffic is going to be denied. If the traffic is not matching the rule also, the traffic will be denied. Then why do we have a firewall? Indirectly we are saying that no traffic is going to be permitted to pass through. You understand? So you can have the policies in the set of rules only with the action configured as permit, because if the rule is matched against the received packet, the traffic will be permitted. If it is not matched, then automatically the traffic will be denied. But if you have the rules only with the deny action, then what would happen? Received packet is matching against the rule, the traffic will be denied. It is not matching against any of the configured rules, again the traffic is going to be denied. You understand? Okay, so that's the logic we need to understand. At this, oh, okay. Give me a minute, let me quit and then join back 1 second so that it will be better. It's loading. Teams is loading on my laptop. See, I told you, right? VSX mostly I will get only as the corporate training. Okay, if not, people used to come as a batch. I don't know whether Bobby told you the fees or not. I normally charge, no, for all the trainings, my charges are high compared to the other institutes. Okay, but for VSX, even more high. You told her? Okay. Oh, okay. See, the problem is on all these things, the level of content and the coverage is going to be little bit difficult. I normally charge the fee based on the difficulty level of the content what I'm covering. See, and moreover, see, the whole time, this 3 o'clock time is my sleeping time. Yeah, because morning 6 o'clock I'm starting the session. Right, so it will go till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Right, so after the, maybe probably classes, but for the past 2.5 months it is like that. But anyway, so after that I have to do some office works also, the mail verification and sending. So 2 o'clock, around 2 o'clock I'll start from office for to have the lunch at home. I'll go home and take the lunch. So 3 to 4 o'clock I'll sleep. Only then my rest of the day I'll be able to run. So again, normally I'll be having the sessions by 5 o'clock. 5 to 6:30 I'll be having the session. 6:30 or 7 o'clock I'll be starting to my club for playing badminton. As long as I'm here in Chennai, I'll be going there. And moreover, weekends will be tightly packed. We used to have the matches. Every week we used to have the matches, but due to this corona we were not having it. Only our club members are allowed to go inside our club, not others. Yeah. Uh, so that's how my schedules are. So 7 to 9, 9:30 I'll be playing. Then all the way I have to go back to home, take bath. So by the time I complete my bath, it will be 10:15 or 10:30. Yes, yes, yes. Mm. I discontinued around 10 years actually. I was playing for my state and was gone for the state national selection and all. That was very long back, engages. Then, due to that kind of what do you call it, some politics, I had to quit. Uh, okay, fine, okay. These things are recording here. Okay. Okay, private link only. No need to worry. Nobody can listen to it. So, what is that happening? Okay, so now we know the significance of having the rules inside my rule basis. Okay, I can understand that only deny statements. Anyway, the traffic is not going to be permitted to pass through. If I have only the permit statements, that is well and good. At the same time, the position of the rules are also playing a very vital role. As like in any other firewall training programs we used to discuss, most significant or most specific entries should be at the top and most generic entries should be at the bottom. For example, assume that we wanted to permit internet access for our internal network except for a single host. Let's say that 10.1.1.0/24 to any like HTTP I would like to permit. Okay, whereas for 10.1. Yeah, what happened? Okay, so 10.1.1.10 only for this host internet is not supposed to be allowed. So according to the rules, the rule is correct. So 10.1.1.0/24 anywhere HTTP is allowed. 10.1.1.10/32 to anywhere HTTP is not allowed. According to the rule, the statements are correct. But the position of the rules is creating some problem. What happened? Assume that this is my first rule and this is my second rule. Even if the traffic is coming from 10.1.1.10, the first rule itself is matching, then because of that the traffic can be permitted. So we have to keep this rule number 2 on top of rule number 1. So what would happen if the traffic is coming from 10.1.1.10, then this rule will match and immediately whatever the action is set, that will be executed. So be sure that the most specific entries are being kept on top and most generic entries are going to be kept at the bottom. Now while you are adding the rules to the existing policy, the new rule is going to be added at the end. Assume that I have 2 rules already. If you're creating a new rule, that rule is going to be placed in the third position only. Right? Can I reorder it? Yes, I can reorder it. There is a command in Juniper Junos called as an insert command. Using this insert, you can reorder the rules. Okay, so that's what we need to remember. Don't forget this one. Okay, so what are all the configurations we can do it? For example, if you have a security policy, what and all you can do it? So there are certain set of commands, keywords. I will show you, that would be better. Okay, first I'll tell you so that you understand that. See, first of all, in Juniper Junos operating system, I told you that it is following the Unix kind of an architecture. It's based out of Unix, right? It is a Unix architecture. Now, basically, whatever the configuration that you do, when you are doing a configuration, you are adding it to the configuration file. Okay, don't forget that. You understand? There is a config file. While you are doing some changes, when you are adding a new set of statement, you are adding that into an existing configuration file. Once you commit, that will become active. Correct? Okay. Now, if I wanted to remove the configuration entry from the file, then you have to use the keyword called as delete. Delete statement. Set statement will allow you to add a statement to the configuration file, whereas delete statement will help you to remove the statement from the configuration file. Understand what I'm saying? Okay, so delete is going to be that. Same time, we also have a couple of other keywords called as deactivate and activate. What is this deactivate and activate? Okay. Now assume that you are working in an organization. Of course, you no need to assume you are working in an organization. Okay. Now, in that organization, you have a firewall. There'll be many rules in your firewall. Am I right? Okay. Now, based on your analysis, you conclude that one of the rule is causing a problem for which recently a user has opened up a case with you. Can you immediately delete the rule? So before you remove it, you have to see the effect of not having the rule in the rule base. So that is where the deactivate will help you. Deactivate is equivalent to disabling the rule. Okay? Then activate, if you conclude that that rule is not the problem, then you can activate it. See, basically what we can do is we can associate a scheduler along with this rule so that the time-based access control list in Cisco kind of a thing can be achieved. See, if you have a time-based access list, you create a time schedule, and then that is going to be associated with an access list. What will happen? According to the rule, according to the time, the rule gets activated or deactivated. While the rule is in deactivated state, even though the rule is there inside the policy, it will not be considered for matching any of the traffic. Okay, so that is activate and deactivate. That's what we need to understand. There is also one more keyword that you need to understand, which is called as insert. Just now I told you. What is that? That's it. Reordering. Yeah. Yeah. Then one more important keyword is called as what? Annotate. What is this annotate? Annotate is equivalent to comments. Why would we need a comment? Why would we need a comment? See, so as a security administrator of an organization, you are responsible for any of the questions asked by your security audit, right? When auditor is coming into picture, you are responsible for answering any kind of a clarifications raised by your auditor. We don't have a choice. But how do you remember the complete set of scenarios? Now, why this change happened? Why did you add the rule? Why did you modify the rule? Why did you remove the rule? How do you know about it? You understand? So that's where the annotate will help you. So I normally do what is that? Whenever some changes are happening, of course we know that we are not the decision makers with respect to who can access what. Somebody would have raised the ticket and somebody would have approved it, but execution alone we are doing it. So when an auditor is asking about why this change, you should know the scenario very well. Okay, so all of these changes within an organization would have been raised because of a ticket. So if I start mentioning those tickets, automatically when an auditor sees that ticket number, he can easily recognize, and he no need to query you. He simply go to the ticketing system and identify the ticket number, and then he can see the complete story of what is that called, the issue. You understand? Okay, that's where the annotate comes into picture. Because in Juniper it follows an architecture like a Unix file format, you have the possibility of doing copy and rename. We know what is this copy? What is that copy? Exactly. You might be having the configuration statements, right? That can be copied from one place and pasted into another place. Only small changes are required, something like cloning. You can copy that and then you can do the changes and then you can achieve whatever you want. Okay? Rename will help you to change the actual component on the rule without copying it. See, I have a rule A. If I copy this to B and then do the changes over here, I can do it. Now, if I'm copying it, how do I do the change? I can take the help of rename and then I can do the changes over there. You can edit the rule and you can modify that. All these things are possible. But how do you do that one? That renaming is what going to be helping you. Right? That is what the rename. There is also one more keyword you need to remember, which is called the search and replace. It is like your, what is it called? your find and replace within your Word. Now what basically happens, we can search anything on the configuration file. Once a match found, that can be replaced with something. Assume that you have policy A and policy B. By mistake, you have applied the policy A in places where you're supposed to be associating policy B. You can search for policy A, then replace with B. That's it, over. You don't need to go and search the configurations individually line by line and then remove the statement and add a new statement. You don't need to do that. Just go for search and replace. That will most of the time that is going to be helpful for you to do it. Okay. Right. Okay. Now, so these are all the components that will be helping you with respect to editing the security related configuration. See, these are all not covered in yesterday video. The yesterday video, I have given you the structure of a policy. That's all. That is common across all of the platforms. Whether you use Cisco, whether you use Juniper, Palo Alto. But of course, they will have their own variations in it. That's a different story. But the whole structure, the basic structure of a policy is identical. Okay. Now, with respect to the policies, we also need to understand one more technology which is called as ALG. Did I share the basic fundamental videos on security? I think I have shared you. Day 1, day 2. Have you seen that video or not? Okay. You have to go through it. I've explained it ALG also over there. It's okay, fine. See, what is this ALG is all about? See, most of the applications are static applications. Now, if I have a web application, let's say HTTP, the client is going to be sending the request to the specific port number TCP/80. Well and good, no problem. The HTTP server should be listening on TCP/80 so that it can respond for that. Take any of the other applications like your FTP or your Telnet or your SSH, all of them are static applications. But in FTP, you have a variation as well. I think I told you about this, active mode FTP and passive mode FTP. Okay, let's take voice over IP. Which are all the port numbers will be used by the voice over IP? It is starting from some 16 and odd through 31 and odd. I think 16384 to something 31 and odd will come into picture, whatever it might be. That means this is the range of port numbers will be used by the IP phones while a call has been made from a phone. Assume that I have a phone 1111 is calling 2222. Okay. When the call is being initialized, the data channel is going to be opened up and they will pick up a port number from this range. Assume that you have a firewall in between. What is that you have to do? You have to permit the range of port numbers, only then the bidirectional communication could be possible. What is the assurance that on this port number no malware can be injected? If you are going to be simply opening up the port number, then obviously it's a kind of a security breach. How do we overcome that? How do we overcome? So we need to have a mechanism to understand whether the requester has requested for that particular port number for their communication or not. No. So what happens when the client is trying to initiate a connection? They will negotiate about the port numbers. What port number we are going to be using it. Okay. Now this ALG feature on my firewall will look into that negotiation and dynamically those port numbers can be opened, and once the session is over, the call got disconnected, whatever the port numbers were dynamically opened up, that is going to be closed. And that is what we call it as ALG. Don't forget a specific term which is called a dynamic pinhole. Okay? Dynamic pinhole. That's what the terminology you need to remember on this. Okay, so that is what ALG is all about. But ALG, don't expect you will be having the feature of ALG for all the applications. That is not going to be happening at all. So only for the identified applications, means Juniper has to develop the ALG feature for the applications which they feel that the firewall may need to face those kind of a problem. Yes, it's not a built-in database. They will be modifying that at a regular interval. Right, the existing pattern is also going to be modified. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah, yeah. Lost my screen, huh? I don't know why this is happening, but only for this session it's going on. Yeah, only for your class it's going on. That's what I'm wondering, why this is happening. See, if this is common for all the online classes, na, then I can agree. Yeah, the problem is with my side. Anyway, fine. Okay, so that's what your what is it called? The ALG feature is all about. So you need to know what are all the features, what are all the applications that the ALG can be enabled on. Okay, right. So not for all the applications you could have. See, if you go to Cisco, they would be having ALG feature for the set of applications. Same way, if you come to Juniper, they might be having the set of applications for which you can enable ALG. Don't expect both of them have to support all the applications identical. It's not going to be happening at all. Cisco might have something in their mind. Juniper may have something else in their mind. But there are certain applications that would be identical. Okay, FTP they will have in common. Okay, voice over IP they will have in common, but not on all the applications. Okay. Now, one more thing we need to understand. What is that? The policy. We know the components of a policy. I'm not going to be taking you through that. Okay. Now, see, first of all, while we are creating the policy, you have to start creating the policy under a context. What do you mean by a context? Right? The meaning, right? It should have some meaning. Here in Juniper SRX, the policy context is nothing but a from zone to zone. This is the context. If the traffic is coming from this zone, going to this zone, that is what the context is all about. That is what the context is all about. Okay? Okay. Now, where do you configure? I will show you first of all before I go to the next one. Is that visible? Okay. Set security policies. Okay. So it is basically, that is the hierarchy. You can say like this, or you go to this edit security policies hierarchy. You can do that. Now under the assume that this is the folder. Okay. So security is a folder, policies is a folder. I'm using cd command to move from the root folder to security and policies. Now whatever the commands or folders are available under the policies is available to me to execute anything. I can execute it. Now I'm saying the syntax of it. Set, see here what happens. Set from zone, trust to zone, and trust. This is my context. Okay, I can do like this, or I can say this is my context again. Edit. I got into a specific context. Now I have to start creating the policies in it. How do I create it? First of all, I just need to say set policy. Okay, this is the policy I'm creating it. Within that policy, I have to give a name. Without the name, nothing would be happening. Okay, let me call this as SRX training policy. Okay, this is the name of the policy. Now, within the policy, you will have multiple rules, right? No, nothing. Earlier it was, now it is not there. Okay. Now the SRX training is the name of the policy which I have created. We already know every policy is also called as what? Rule basis, right? A collection of rules. Now every rule needs to be identified by something called as a term. The rules is equivalent to terms within your SRX. Now, if you go to Cisco, let me show you that one. See, we have access control list. Okay. So list of rules. Every rule is called as ACE, access control elements. So access control list is the rule base. Access control element is a rule. Same way here, if I say policy is a access control list, rule is called as term. You understand? Okay. Let's see. Now do I have, see, directly they are giving the names here. Match. I made a mistake. Sorry. These terms will be part of packet filters in Juniper SRX. I'll show you that also. That is not part of our discussion. I'll show you that. Then I'll come to this so that you'll be able to understand it. Edit firewall filter. Okay. Name of the filter, let me call it as ABC. Set. Can you see them? This is the name of the access control. My mouse is not moving. Okay, this is the name of the access control list, and then I have to start giving the, what is it called? The rules. The rules are identified as terms. This is a packet filter. See why this is possible in SRX. SRX, though it is a stateful inspection firewall, but it uses an operating system which is called as a Junos, which is basically a network based operating system which is available in all the routers of your Juniper. The Junos operating system by default enabled with something called as what? Packet filters, like your access control list. The packet filters are stateless in nature. Do you wanted to make use of packet filters on your SRX? You can. If you wanted to use stateful inspection firewalls, yes you can. But where this is going to be taking effect, say for example, so I told you that you have both of them. What is that both of them? You have, where is that? So you have a firewall, okay? Now you have the interfaces, multiple interfaces. Let's take two interfaces here. There are two interfaces. Then you also have the firewall engine. Okay. Now these interfaces are connected to that engine. Now this engine is session based. Okay. This is where the policies which we were discussing as of now. Okay. Now on the interface level, upon receiving the packet, I can take some actions by having packet filters. Right? If you want to apply the packet filters here or here, you can do that one. But it is not stateful in nature. And this feature is available in all Junos platforms, whereas this one is available only in SRX. Do you want to use this and this? Yes, you can use it. You wanted to use packet filter and also you wanted to use stateful inspection firewall. Yes, you can do that. Right here, you have a policy and then the name of the access control list and then followed by the terms. Whereas in session based, every policy needs to be identified by a name because every rule is a policy within that. Okay. Now I'm coming here. Got the difference? Got the clarity on the difference? Edit firewall. Sorry. Edit security policies. Then now I can start creating the policies here. Each and every policy needs to be identified by a name. Set policy, I'm calling it as P1. Then I have to use something called as match and then statement. Match is equivalent to the identification component. See, I have explained you identification, action and option. You remember in a policy. In a single rule, you will have three different components. What are all there? Identification component, action component and optional component. So something we need to identify. How do you identify? Using the match statement you can identify. See what are all the things that you can match it. Hey. Can you see them? So you have the source address, source identity, destination address, application. You can identify any of them. You can identify any of them. Um, Around 1 minute, I'm getting a call actually. Hello, Kash. Hi. That's okay. That's okay. I'm good. I'm good, Kashif. Niranjan told me to call you to check with. Actually, on August 8th, we used to travel. Okay, every year. It's not that this year. Due to a small mistake I did, my booking got cancelled. There is an expectation from the family that always, since every year we were traveling, and this year also they are expecting the same kind of a travel. But I don't want to go out of India, or I don't want to go out of Chennai also. So when I checked with Niranjan, he said that you go and check Kashif. Kashif will help you to book a property. Mm. Oh my God. 8th, ninth, 8th night and ninth night. Sunday and Monday. Um, uh, yes, yes, yes. True, true, true. Hmm. Oh my goodness. My family, me, my wife, and two kids. I mean, kids in the sense they are also adults. My daughter is 16 years. Okay, okay, okay. Mm, mm. Okay, okay. Oh, okay, okay. Ah, okay. Okay, okay, okay. What would be the pricing, Kashif? Mm. Uh. Okay. Uh. Mm. Okay. No, actually, see, I'm a member of Sterling, I'm a member of Club Mahindra, I'm a member of Taj. Okay. So, I'm just kind of a little bit understanding what is the budget itself, because most of the time I travel across along with these people only, either Sterling or Club Mahindra or Taj. That's how I used to go for it. Mm, mm. Okay. Yes, yes. Uh. Okay, okay. Okay, okay. Okay. Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Oh. Actually, it's a birthday only. My wife's birthday only. Oh. I understand. Please, please, please. If possible. Okay, okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, 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 yeah. Thank you, thank you. Uh, Hello. Sorry, Ram. I have a call scheduled by 4:30. So that's okay. Fine. Not a problem at all. I'll take care of this. Okay, you're able to see my screen, right? Screen is visible, right? Okay. So what is that basically happens? I'm just going to be creating the policy, and while I'm creating the policy, I have to name it, and then I just need to use the match statement to identify the traffic. So match is used to identify, whereas then statement is going to be helping you to associate an action towards it. So match, I have source address. Let's assume the same rule we will create it. Na? So match source address, right? Then I have to create an adject, na? 10.1.1.0/24. Okay. Then I can also put the destination address as my condition. Destination address any IPv4. Then application. I can say what is that? Junas HTTP, whatever you want. So this Junas HTTP is the object created by Juniper itself. So anything comes with Junas as the a prefix. That means that object has been created by Juniper itself. So it is always recommended to create the object first before you get into the what is it called? Before you refer them inside the policy. Okay, I'll show you how to do that one and all. So now we have certain things like 10.1.1.0 on the fly. I just created the policy. So the same policy. Hey, what happened? Okay. Same policy, I need to associate an action, right? So the policy is going to be the same. See what are all the actions I have? I have permit, I have reject, I have deny, I have a log, count, all of them are there. Let me say permit. That's it, over. The rule has been created. But basically what you have to do is before you start working on the policies, whatever the details are required, you have to create those objects first. First create the object. Without creating the objects, don't try get into the policies. Okay? So how do I create the objects? First of all, let me go to edit security zone trust. Okay, I'm under the zone. Then I can create something called as address book. Address book means address book. Let's say address book followed by, I have an option like address. What is the address? 10.1.1.0/24. Then I made a mistake, I guess. Address book. Okay, I can create the address book entries first. Okay, address followed by, I just need to give a name for it first. Okay, let me say VLAN 10. That's the name I'm giving, followed by the addresses 10.1.10.0/24. Now I have created an address book entry for 10.1.10.0/24. The name what I have given is VLAN 10. Right? Now if I have to call this one inside a policy, I can call it inside. For example, if my source zone is trust, then I can see this object under the source field. If my destination zone is trust, then I can see this object only under the destination field. I'll show you that. Edit security policies from zone trust to zone untrust. Okay. Now set policy P2 because P1 is already created. Match source address, then give a question mark. You can see the source field over here, the VLAN 10. Can you see that? Because the policy context, source zone is trust, destination zone is untrust. Instead of this, if I create a zone, if I create the context, right, edit security policies from zone untrust to zone trust. Okay. Now if I say set policy P1 match address, if I give the source address, I will not be able to see that VLAN 10 because now the source is not part of untrust, correct? The 10.1.10.0 is not bound to a zone and it is not part of the untrust, correct? Now if I say destination's address, I can see that VLAN 10. I'm a Telugu guy only, na? అవును. ఏమైందంటే మీన్స్ డే బిఫోర్ ఎస్టర్డే అండ్ ఎస్టర్డే మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ మై డేస్ ఐ స్పెంట్ విత్ ది తెలుగు పీపుల్ ఓన్లీ. వాట్ హ్యాపెన్, మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద టైమ్ ఐమ్ స్పీకింగ్ తెలుగు. Okay, so this is how it will be happening, you understand? So we have from zone, we have to zone. Whichever the zone is your from zone, whatever the objects that you have bound to that zone will be seen in your source address field. Whatever the zone that you have defined as the destination zone or the to zone, all the objects associated to that to zone, okay, will be displayed under the destination address field. That's what the logic you need to understand with respect to the policy structure what we are talking about. Got it? So we have a couple of actions over there. You remember we have seen permit, deny, reject, log, count, all of them were there. What is the meaning of them? When I say permit, the traffic is going to be permitted, correct? When I say deny, the traffic is going to be dropped. Straightforward. Then what is reject? That is also traffic is going to be denied only, right? Deny and reject, what is the meaning of it? No. Deny simply drops the packet. When it comes to reject, right, the traffic is going to be dropped. At the same time, an ICMP unreachable message will be sent if it is a UDP based traffic. If in case it is a TCP based application, then RST packet will be sent. The reject means, I would say that negative acknowledgement. The packet has been dropped. That information will be given to the sender that I have dropped your packet. Okay? Then log means, the traffic log. I no need to explain you that. Count is nothing but the hit count. Basically, in Juniper, the hit count is not the property of the policies. You have to say that if you wanted to count the number of packets matching against the policy, then you have to set the action as count. Unless you enable the count is not going to be shown to you. Okay? So that's the logic you need to understand. Okay? Now, in the newer versions of your firewalls, there is also another set of what is it called? Actions that could be possible. I will show you. Where is my mouse? Here it is. Okay, these are all the actions I have it. Other than that, I don't have it. Okay, now let me say permit. Okay, then I'm going to be giving you a question mark. I also have, see what and all I have. I have a firewall authentication and the tunnel option is also there. But if the box is capable of doing an UTM functionality, UTM will also be an option. If it has the IDP policy, that IDP policy can also be referred. Basically, if the traffic is being permitted to pass through, right, and you wanted to go for some additional advanced settings, yes, I can do it. For example, if I say tunnel, right, what basically happens is, I can do a policy based VPN over here. See, in Juniper, there are two, of course in other vendors also it is possible, but we keep on saying that in Juniper, there are two types of VPNs possible. One is policy based VPN, the other one is route based VPN. When we come to VPN, I'll explain you. Okay, so on a policy also, you can define the action as a tunnel. If the traffic is matching against the traffic, if the traffic is matching against the condition, the traffic is going to be sent through the tunnel. Okay, then same way, I can also enable some firewall authentication that we will see probably in the next, probably next or next to next session. We will see that. Right, IDP policy is an intrusion detection policy. UTM, unified threat management, like your antivirus, web filtering, content filtering could also be possible, provided you have the license associated to you. Okay, those things are possible. So we need to understand what is this and all. Okay, so So don't forget that one. Okay. Mm. Occupied. So again, 3 o'clock, 3 to 5 you have session, and 5 to 7 also you have a session. Session started, VSX session started, Mm. But you speak Hindi, right? But normally in Andhra, people speak Hindi very fluently. I've seen many people. Mm. Oh, okay. Ballari, okay. That gold mine is there, right? Mm. Okay, fine. Okay. Right. So one more information I just need to explain you is how do you verify the policy operation, like the traffic log is being collected. Is there a way that I can send it across to any of the syslog servers? Can I do this one? Yes, I can do this, but I will show you where these logs can be collected and sent. For example, show system syslog. This is the settings here. By default, this is the setting. The meaning of this logs within your Juniper architecture you need to be familiar with, right? So as like any of the firewalls or any of the devices, you have the severities and facilities, okay? There is nothing you need to worry about it. See, basically what happens, people whomever has logged in, user star, okay? The user can be anybody, doesn't matter this user or that user. If they have logged into the device, any emergency category of messages are being generated by your Juniper SRX will be shown to you. You understand what I'm saying? Okay. And there is a file which will be created with the name as messages. A file by your Juniper operating system will be creating with the name of messages. This is by default. You don't need to create this one. Within that, any facility with any severity is going to be collected. At the same time, the user whomever is getting authorized under the severity level of information will also be logged up. So you can see that. See, show log, run show log messages. You can see the log information. This is the name of the file. Okay, that file is collecting the log details. By default, all the facilities, all the severities are going to be collected. Okay, there is also one more file, show system syslog. Check it out. There is one more file, right? Can you see them? File interactive commands. The name of the file is interactive commands, that is responsible for collecting all the commands executed by any of the administrator. It doesn't matter what severity it is. Right? Interactive command is the facility. Severity can be anything. So whatever the command he is executing, that is going to be collected. Okay? No. Yes, you can. Yes, here show log. You see that run show log interactive commands. You can give that command. You can see the content of it. See, user root executed the command called as edit. Okay. Like this, you can see all the details of it. You can also apply the filter if you are familiar with the Juniper operating system, or if you are familiar with the Unix architecture, you can do that. If you have done JNCA Jonas, these things are explained in detail over there. But for you, I guess it is not required. That's why. You understand, right? Okay, so that's what you need to practice and explore them. You will be able to understand things in a better way. Now, if you want to push the logs to a specific, what is it called, syslog server, you can do that one also. See, come here. Hey, my mouse point. Here. Edit system syslog. Okay. Now set. See that. What is that I have? I have variety of option. Set host 10.1.1.100. This is where I'm going to be sending it. Okay. Now I can say what traffic I have to send it. I can say, let's say severity It's not there, huh? Severity is not there. Okay. Do I have it or not? Facility explicit priority authorization is there. Any is there. Then followed by, this is the severity levels: alert, critical, emergency, error, informational, notifications, warning. These severity levels you can mention it. So severity levels are totally 8, starting from 0 to 7, as like your Cisco only. There is nothing I can define it. And this any can be any of the facilities listed over here. It can be related to firewall, it can be related to kernel, can be related to port or PFE or NTP, it can be anything. Then, so I'm saying any, and then severity as what? Notification. So basically what is going to be happening to this particular host, any facility with the severity of notification will be sent to it. Now if you see the log messages, run, show, log messages, there will be a lot of information. See here, the first thing is always going to be starting with your date, then time, and which process has initiated it, then what is the host name that has created it. Can you see them? You can see the information over here. This is the kernel related thing, and yes, top. You can see them. See, there is a IOCTL suppressor. IOCTL is nothing but input output control. This is a Unix architecture's one. You will be having two different processes: user mode processes and kernel mode processes. The user mode process and kernel mode process are going to be talking to each other through the help of IOCTL only. There are two different things. One is called as a trap, the other one is called as IOCTL. Not required for us, don't worry. So this is what we need to understand. So you can enable the log. Once you have enabled the log, the details of the traffic is going to be collected, whatever you have it. For example, if you have the policy to deny or policy to permit, the action associated to the rule is going to be executed, and then the details of the packets are going to be captured. Right? That's where the log option comes into picture. Right? So I also have explained you the activation and deactivation, right? We have seen that one. Activate and deactivate, that could be done based on the based on the time slots also. You remember the time based access list can be created. I told you, right? So same way, if you wanted to enable or disable a specific policy according to a specific time of the day or a day of the week or day of the month, all you have to do is you just need to create the one first. Okay. Now I forgot the hierarchy. Wait, let me see that. Set security policies scheduler, or set system scheduler. There will be set schedulers. This is where the root hierarchy itself you have it. Set schedulers schedule. What is the schedule I want? Okay, I'm just scheduling. There are two different types of schedulers. Giving it as ABC. You have two different things, right? I have the choice of saying as a recurring one, right? Recurring one. I can also say exact absolute time schedule. See, only on Monday, only on Friday, if you wanted to do it, you can do it. You can also say daily on weekdays, okay? I can also go and say start date and then end date. I can also combine both of them. What do you mean by this? See, start date and start time, if I mention it, this is where the rule is going to be activated. The stop date and time, the rule is getting deactivated. That's it, once over. And that is why this kind of a schedule is called as an absolute schedule or exact schedule. The other type of schedule or object is called as recurring schedule. That means I can say daily, right? Or Monday, Wednesday, Tuesday. Now say this, if the day of the week is Monday, Tuesday or Wednesday, the rule is on a specific time, then the rule is going to be activated or deactivated accordingly. And then this schedule needs to be associated to the policy. Don't forget that. Just by creating the schedule is not going to be helping you. For example, see, I am creating a schedule here. ABC, start date. Let me say that today it is 6th, 5th, 6th, right? Okay. So 2021 month is going to be 08, date is going to be 06 dot, hour is 09, minute is 00. This is my start. Then followed by stop date is same 2021 08 06 dot 17 hours. This is the schedule I have created it. Then set security policies from zone trust to zone and trust policy P1. Then what is that I have? The complete set I have. Scheduler I can associate it, ABC. I already created the policy called as P1. You remember? That policy now it is associated with Now this is how the scheduler is going to be associated to it. Okay? There is one important keyword that you need to remember with respect to policies within your Juniper. It's called as something called set security policies, policy rematch. Don't forget this statement. Now basically what happens, by default this is not enabled. Okay, now let's assume that if you are deleting a policy. Now the rematch flag, that means the rematch is enabled or disabled. That's the two state. Right? So I have set policies, policy rematch, I can press enter. That means I'm enabling it. Now if I don't have this statement, that means it is disabled it. That's the meaning of it. Okay. Now assuming that the status of the policy rematch is disabled and you are deleting an existing policy, what would happen for the existing session? Sorry? No, it will be removed. Drops all existing sessions when you delete the rule. Sorry? Correct? No, don't think of your checkpoint and discuss here. That is, checkpoint is different, okay? Now you need to install the policy over there. Here it is not the case. Okay? Now assume that you have the rematches disabled and you have the policy deleted. All the existing sessions are going to be dropped. Okay? Now, even if you enable it, existing sessions are going to be dropped. Whether you have enabled it, the policy rematch is enabled or not, doesn't matter. When a policy is getting deleted, okay, all the sessions are going to be dropped. Okay. Now, the policy is being modified. Assume that you have a policy action set as permit and you are changing it to deny, or you have a policy statement with deny and you're changing it to permit, whatever it is, permit to deny or permit to reject, whatever it is, you're changing that one. Okay, if the rematch flag is disabled, you have changed the action from permit to deny. For the existing connections, the traffic will still be continuing it. But no, after commit also, this is not a matter at all. See, once you after committing only the changes will take effect, right? But if the policy rematch is disabled, right, then existing sessions will still continue even though you have modified the action of the policy from permit to deny or reject. But if you have enabled the rematch, all your existing sessions will be dropped. Don't forget these things. Okay? Assume that you are modifying the address field. Action, if you are modifying, this is the case. If you are modifying the address or modifying the application, then what will happen? The case number 1, if the policy rematch is disabled, all existing sessions will continue. There won't be any problem. If the policy rematch is enabled, what Juniper SRX firewall will do is it starts re-evaluating the sessions. Okay, so don't forget, this is more important with respect to your checkpoint, your Juniper SRX policy rematch feature. Don't forget it. If you want, you can enable it. So there are a couple of actions. What is that? If you delete the policy, what would happen? Whether you have enabled the policy rematch or not doesn't matter. Existing sessions are going to be dropped. If you modify the action, then there is a significant difference of enabling policy rematch or disabling the policy rematch. If the policy rematch is disabled, existing sessions will still be permitted, whereas new sessions are going to be evaluated. Whereas if the rematch flag is enabled, then even the existing sessions are also going to be dropped when you modify the action. But if you're modifying the address or application and the policy rematch is disabled, all your existing sessions will continue. If it is enabled, re-evaluation of the policy will happen. This is most important keyword.